Joining us now, retired U.S. Major General and former Deputy Commanding General of the U.S. Third Army in Kuwait, Randy Manner. He also facilitated the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq in 2010. I believe you are stuck currently, sir. And Stephen Cook,
yes,
who is still with us. So, General, where are you and how are you getting out?
So I'm presently in Dubai. I was just in transit through the country for work, and I'm with tens of thousands of other people. I'm stuck here. My thoughts, of course, are with the U.S. military members and their families of those that were killed and injured, plus those that are still serving, because it's so difficult being in harm's way. And then, of course, my heart does go out to all of the civilians and the families of all of the people in the region who have been killed. And lastly, the literally many, many tens of thousands of travelers that are impacted by this war and their families. The uncertainty for them is significant. When I landed in Abu Dhabi, literally one of the last planes to land before being diverted, and there were missile strikes going on as we landed about 20 miles from the airport at the U.S. base there. Imagine thousands of phones going off with all the warnings of the missile strikes and to seek shelter, the same way that in the United States, if there's a tornado that is imminent, your phone goes off with a very loud sound. There was no panic, but it was very, very surreal.
The region has been attacked by Iran, and maybe the calculation was that if Iran attacks the region will put pressure on the United States to back off. That sounds like it's backfired. General, do you anticipate the region getting involved in this in a more significant way than maybe just opening up the airspace?
I certainly hope, and I am getting indications that many of the governments here are trying to put pressure in the United States to either end this or to wrap it up pretty darn quick. Because, of course, not only is it impacting their own economies, their citizens are also at risk. They have never experienced this idea of Iran actually attacking non-U.S. bases, which is what has been going on, to be able to draw attention to it by those governments. So, I also need to comment, being here in the UAE in Dubai, the government and the people have been extremely gracious. They have been calm. There's tension, but they have been very supportive of the tens of thousands of travelers from all nationalities as we are stuck here. And it's also, by the way, a little bit disheartening, as you can probably imagine. It was announced earlier today by BBC that the British government is going to schedule flights by British Air Force transport planes to get the UK citizens out, whereas here for the United States, we still have not heard anything through the State Department, even though we're all registered. And it feels a little bit disheartening to feel abandoned by our own government. I've talked to 2 embassies, and they, quite frankly, are in survival mode. And I don't blame them. As you recall, the State Department budgets have been reduced by almost half. So they have very limited capability compared to when I was the Deputy Commanding General in the area, when we would do small-scale evacuation of civilians around the Middle East. So my heart also goes out to them and to their families because they are trying to survive.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Let me talk a little bit more about the region and the reaction. Stephen, and the reporting out there that MBS was back-channeling or was privately calling the president and urging him to strike. The Saudi embassy, a spokesman from the Saudi embassy, denies this reporting from the Washington Post. But what is your understanding of where MBS's head lies?
Yeah, the Saudis maintain that the president asked the Crown Prince's opinion on this, and the Crown Prince gave his opinion. And it was not lobbying for an attack. We do know from reporting that when his brother, the defense minister, Khalid bin Salman, was in Washington, he did say to groups that he met with that there was really no in-between. Either the United States attacked Iran and Iran would become weaker, or it did not attack Iran and Iran would grow stronger. So this is now a minor controversy in Washington. I think the Saudis don't necessarily want to be associated with the idea of lobbying, especially lobbying alongside of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, the Saudis continue to complain about the Iranians, how they did not live up to their normalization agreement of 2023. I'm getting a somewhat different message from Gulf officials that I've been in touch with than the general. One said to me that the attacks on the GCC states have shifted everything for all of the governments, and they regard it as criminal. They've all issued some very, very strong statements reserving the right to respond. But it seems that thus far, they don't want to get directly involved. They feel as if as long as the United States and Israel are continuing to degrade Iran's capabilities, they feel okay sitting on the sidelines. They also estimate within the next 3 or 4 days, and this is good for General Manor, that the airspaces in and around their countries might very well open up.
Is that because Iran's going to run out of munitions itself, or they're going to just lose the capability of attacking outside of its country?
Well, I think that's a better question for the general, but that's my understanding, is that now we're in a game of numbers. The Iranians had a limited number of missiles that they could use as a result of the 12-day war in June 2025. And the United States and Israel have already done a significant amount of damage to their inventory as well as their launchers. So I think that if you do the math and the rate at which the Iranians are launching, of course, which they could change, but that they are time limited.
General, I'll get you on that. I'll also ask you about Iran's stockpile of drones.
So as you can imagine, it is immense because they're very inexpensive to produce. I don't have firsthand knowledge about how that has been degraded. I am also a little bit concerned that, as was mentioned earlier in the hour, that the reasons for this strike seem to be almost like someone Googled, why should we attack Iran? Because at first it was to eliminate the capability to produce nuclear weapons. Then it was regime change. Now it's sink their navy. Now it's even the idea of sending American soldiers in. We have very little ground forces in the Middle East. When I was in Iraq and Kuwait, we had over 150,000 soldiers there. That's just not a possibility. So I think it's interesting that the American people do not really understand what is the objective, and we deserve to understand what does the end state look like, and when will we know when we are there. So this is a very difficult situation. And again, I do agree, by the way, that the governments in the local area are obviously outraged at Iran by doing this. I didn't mean to imply that they're not. They obviously are, because they're standing up for their citizens. At the same time, it's something where the idea of negotiation really is important at the same time.
Yeah. General, really good to have you. I do hope you're able to get home soon. I hope everybody stays safe around you, obviously.
And everyone else as well. Thank you.
Yes, definitely.